Thưa quý vị, khoảng một năm trước, bộ phim tài liệu Remembering Vietnam của tác giả Bob Johnson đã mang tới rất nhiều những ký ức của những cựu chiến binh Mỹ khi tham chiến tại Việt Nam. Họ lúc đó là những thanh niên ở tuổi đôi mươi bị đưa tới Việt Nam tham gia vào cuộc chiến và đã khiến cho họ có những ký ức và những ám ảnh kéo dài sau này, cũng như là cả những sự hối hận. Kéo theo đó là những câu chuyện liên quan tới phong trào phản chiến đã diễn ra như thế nào tại đất nước Mỹ xa xôi. Và ngày hôm nay thì chúng tôi được chào đón trở lại trong trường quay tác giả của bộ phim Remembering Vietnam, ông Bob Johnson, cùng với một người đã từng tham chiến tại Việt Nam với vai trò là một y tá phục vụ trong quân y, ông John Tetzchner. Welcome back to Cà Phê Sáng and welcome for the first time to Cà Phê Sáng with VTV3.
Thank you.
For the second time?
No, second time in the country. Sorry.
I welcome for the first time, John
Yes.
Tetzchner, but and the second time you come back to Vietnam. We all know that after 50 years. So first, Mr. Justin, why did you decide to come back to Vietnam, and what did you expect to find out in this second round?
When we did Remembering Vietnam, as we discussed on the first time I appeared on your show, we wanted to do something different from the other programs that were being done on the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War. There were many documentaries that were historic, looks back at the war, and we wanted to do a film that conveyed the human experience, the human emotion of what war does to people. So our show did just that. We interviewed veterans who had been in Vietnam during the war, anti-war protesters, and a cross-section of other people who were caught up in the conflict, and as a result, had different types of sufferings. And also, we found out during that interview that you keep the memories of a experience like that with you forever. So we aired Remembering Vietnam in November of 2017 on Veterans Day, which we thought was very appropriate, appropriate time to air that film. And we received very good feedback from people who watched it. And we went on to win some awards, which we're very grateful for.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. So we decided that we couldn't end the story there. We needed to move the story forward because of the fact that so many people that we interviewed hadn't talked about Vietnam for a long time. They hadn't thought about it. They hadn't, in some cases, they hadn't addressed the emotions that were buried deep inside of them.
Some places.
Exactly. So we decided to continue the story. And instead of going back to those same people we interviewed, we wanted to single out a couple of individuals who had been to Vietnam during the war and take them back to your country and to see what the reaction would be. Whether it would be one of discovery, one of discovering their innermost feelings, and bringing those to the surface, whether there was going to be any conflicting emotions once they came back. And we started searching for two veterans. And we found one veteran named Joe Masurtsky, who lives in Cleveland, in the center of America, in Ohio. And he was a sailor in the Mekong Delta. And he agreed to come back to Vietnam and brought his whole family back with him. He brought his wife, he brought his son, and his daughter-in-law, and their very young granddaughter. So his whole family came over. And then I contacted John, who I had known for a long time. John and I worked together 20 years ago.
30 years ago.
30 years ago.
What did you guys do together?
In the television business. Television business. John worked on many shows as a graphic designer and a
I helped
director.
launch CNN.
Yes.
On CNN, worked on Oprah, on the Oprah show. So I contacted John and said, would you have any desire to come back to Vietnam?
And what did you say for the first time he asked you?
The first time he asked me, I said, let me think about it, because I had, in my previous positions, I had done a lot of travel in this area, and I would fly over Vietnam, and I would look down and I would think about my time here. And then I would think about, do I need to go back? And at the time I decided, no, I don't need to go back. I'm done. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
But then when Bob asked me, it's been years later, I've gotten older now, I think more about the past.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to come back. And I wasn't sure what I would feel or how it would go, but I was anxious to sort of face the event, the adventure.
Yeah. So 50 years ago, you were in Vietnam.
I was a.
How old were you back then?
I was older than most of the soldiers in America. I was 22 years old.
All right.
Most of them were 18, 19.
Yeah.
And I was a combat medic.
Yeah.
So I didn't carry a weapon. I just carried medical, and
You saved a lot of people.
I saved a lot of people. Yeah.
Good. So I could say your overall experience in Vietnam 50 years ago was not as damaging and obsessive as others.
Correct. I think because I had the feeling of doing well and doing something constructive as opposed to destructive, that it helped me not only then, but helped me through the years since to understand my adventure and how it went. But I wasn't sure what it would be when I came back. But it's been very more emotional than I thought it would be.
Ah, okay. So did you have to convince him a lot of time to
Not
get a trip
really.
back with you?
You know, since we're friends, I wasn't going to put John into a position that would bring back bad memories and take him back instead of forward. So we discussed it a lot, and I actually went out to Los Angeles
Yeah.
and spent time with John, and we sat down face to face and talked about it. You know, I wanted to look him in the eye and say, you know, this is something that, you know, I think you should do because I think it would be good for you. It would be good for you to be able to come back and meet the people and kind of put a different perspective on that time.
And I trusted my friend that he would protect me emotionally as well as physically.
So before going back, what is the image of Vietnam and Vietnamese people in your mind?
I have only heard wonderful things about the Vietnamese people, and that made me more comfortable about coming back. I never wanted to have a confrontation or have some dialogue that was bad for both sides. I was anxious to come back to experience what I had heard of the warmth and the wonderfulness of the people here. So I was excited.
Because in the past, when you were a combat medic, you saved a lot of people from both sides. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's true. I would, if we came through a village and there were wounded Vietnamese, we would stop and I would work and regularly we would come through and they would know me and they would come when I came through and I would fix wounds, treat wounds, give shots. So that was one of the good times
Yeah.
of the war. There weren't too many good times, but those were some good times.
Yeah, you made me remember Mel Gibson's movie.
We Were Soldiers Once.
No.
Not that one?
After that, it was a World War II movie.
Right.
Heartbreak? No. I know the medical.
The medic.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
is the
I
main
can't remember the
character
name of
that
it.
Well, he was a hero.
he
Not-
denied to
right.
carry a gun,
Right.
and he saved a lot of people. Wow, that was really a triumphant job. That
Well, and people need to realize that, you know, war is inhuman, yet in some cases it brings out the humanity in people,
yes,
you know. So, and I think that's an important.
and bringing out the humanity in people is also, I think it's your mission. Coming back to Vietnam for the first time and for the second time, is that true?
I think so. I mean, you know, when I was here in 1968, at the same time John was here, I really didn't get the opportunity to discover the country and talk to the people, but I had this feeling about Vietnam that not only were we not supposed to be here in the way that we were here, but that it was a place that I always wanted to come back to and discover more about the people.
Yeah.
As far as the humanitarian part of it, I believe in the business that we're in, now it's even more important for journalists to go out and do films like this to show that there's more to it than just reality television shows and and what's branded as fake news. I think these kinds of endeavors are really, really important individually, and you're correct. I really do feel that this is a mission I need to complete
Yeah.
for my own, for my own self, but also to kind of, for my students who are journalism students, show them that there's a responsibility to their careers, as well as going out and making a good salary and enjoying it. I think you have a responsibility to, show that human side of people.
That's correct. And let's talk about the trip. Where did you go to Vietnam this time together?
Well, first we went down to the Mekong Delta with Joe, and we took him to the vicinity where his experience was on a swift boat. He was on a swift boat like John Kerry.
Yeah.
And we took him and his family, including his young granddaughter, down to the site of the battle that he was in the canal, and took him back to the site of a village that they had burnt down. When they were going on their mission, they were going down the canal, they started receiving some small arms fire, so they returned the fire, and as a result they went in and they burned down the village. So he wanted to go back to that site and make amends. So we went to the area where that village was. It's no longer there. There's another village next to it. So we took Joe there. He was able to meet, through the great efforts of your team here at VTV3, he was able to meet the 91-year-old soldier who confronted him in that battle.
Wow, that was...
And they were able to sit down in his house
Wow.
and talk about that, and actually sit there with Joe's 6-month-old granddaughter. And this gentleman held his granddaughter, which was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And they discussed how they were just doing what they were told to do. They were just
exactly.
doing what their countries
Following
asked
orders.
them to do, following orders. And after that, we went to the village where some of the villagers came who lived in that village that Joe and the soldiers burnt down, and planted a tree of peace. Planted a tree, and Joe had a nice plaque made, commemorating the fact that he returned after these years with remorse.
That is
and with
something
the
that
hope.
nobody expected
Nobody
or saw
expected.
that coming. No one.
No.
Nobody. And it made him feel so good. It really made him feel that he brought closure to what he did.
And relief.
Because unlike John, he was an aggressive soldier. I mean,
Yeah.
that was his job. His
Yeah.
job was to go out there and confront the enemy.
Yeah.
And do whatever was needed to be done. So it really was full circle. And then we went on a couple of journeys with John.
I had taken pictures when I was here 50 years ago, and when Bob suggested this trip, I went through my books and I found these pictures, and I gave them to Bob, and one of them was a picture of a temple, a gate to a temple.
Yeah.
And I was asked if maybe we could find that temple, and I'd love to go back to stand in that space and see my picture and see it here and to be
50
here
years
50 years
after.
later. Not only did they find the temple, but we went in the gate and we went to the temple, one of the grandest temples I have ever seen in my life. And we timed it so that we were there for the midday prayer. There were about 300 monks and people there, and doing their ceremony and their prayers. And then we got a chance to walk through and see it. And in fact, one of the gentlemen that was there in 1968. And we got a chance to exchange greetings. And it was a great moment for me, just to go back into a picture almost,
Yeah.
and to relive that. But the next day we went to the Cu Chi tunnels, and the jungle around Cu Chi is where I was based and where I spent 13 months. And the only time I went into a tunnel it wasn't my job to go in a tunnel, it was somebody else's job. But
Yeah.
we came across a tunnel system one time, and all the soldiers with me were big guys like him, and I was a small guy, and they asked me if I would go down, and I said, okay. So I went down to check it out, and as soon as I got down in it, I realized I don't belong here, personally, for my own safety. and it's not my job, and I got very frightened,
Yeah.
and I came right back out.
Anxiety attack.
Yes, yes. And you don't want one of those in the middle of war.
Yes.
And so I came out, and I hadn't been in a tunnel since, but the jungle around there, and when we went back, walking through the jungle,
Yeah.
even though it's a new jungle, it's not as thick as it was, that really brought everything to a stop
Did your heart race faster?
much faster, and I went back 50. I immediately went 50 years time travel, and it was. I remember every day I woke up afraid,
Yes.
and I felt that feeling. I remembered my fear, and I was happy to be there, not afraid, to sort of close the circle of time and of life experience. So that was very powerful for me.
Yeah, I want to ask about the temple. Going back after 50 years, what is the first emotions that you feel stepping over those gates?
That when our message back then was that we weren't to go in the gates. We never bothered the American soldiers never bothered the temples, and it was out of respect that was totally
The
something
war is out there, but not
separate.
inside the gates.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So to get in the gates was wonderful, and then to find the grandness and the humbleness of the people involved was just wonderful for me, and I didn't know it was coming. I had no idea that we could. I thought we would just see the gate. To actually go in and experience it was wonderful, and it brought a whole different look to my experience then.
Yes.
And I think that's, our relationship with VTV3 in this project has just been wonderful in that it has allowed us to actually get inside the story, as opposed to just being on the outside, doing some narrative and saying, here is the place where this happened, here's the place where this happened. We're able to actually immerse ourselves,
Yeah.
in these memories in John's case, and in the case of, I think, the crew and everybody involved, go back with John and Joe to these periods and experience that. So it really was a great opportunity.
So during this trip, besides from what is the other soldier's name?
Joe.
Joe. During this trip, besides Joe touching moments, were there any other moments that you feel quite satisfied that you were there to witness and to film it?
Every day. Every day, as John said, the graciousness of the Vietnamese people, in that it was obvious who we were, and it was obvious from our age that, we were around during the time of the war, and that with the film crew following us, there was, some kind of agenda in place for us being there. We weren't tourists per se. So the way we were accepted, we were never, nobody ever came up and waved a finger in our face or did anything. I mean,
Yeah.
That's when I came back in March. That's what really, really drove it home to me that, the Vietnamese people and the country are very warm and caring and very forgiving. As a matter of fact, I think we discussed the last time I was here, the experience down in My Lai, where, such a horrendous event that occurred, and we were able to go back there, not as, direct participants in that event, but representative of the people who did that to that village, and not be confronted, but to be forgiven, as, representatives of our country. That was an incredible experience. So to answer your question, every day was a marvelous experience, professionally and
Yes.
personally.
And I heard that you were wounded.
Yes.
50 years ago during the battle?
Yes, there was one night there was a battle. It was through the Ben Cui rubber plantations, and we used to travel there. And one night we set up and in a circle to defend ourselves, and night came and there was a very big battle. We knew it was coming. We felt there was probably going to come, and it came, and a very large battle, and everybody was safe within the circle, on the edge of the circle, and then as fire came in, people got wounded, and when they got wounded, they yelled my name, medic. And so I had to leave the safety of my bunker and go to who was ever wounded. Well, I did that throughout the battle, and one time, as I was running across the center of the circle, a rocket-propelled grenade came in and landed next to me, and it blew up, and it hit me on the side,
Oh,
and
a fragment, shrapnel?
yes,
Shrapnel.
came in and tore up my
It
neck.
could have been fatal.
Oh, well, the end of the story. So I was wounded, and I was the only medic around, so I had to tell other soldiers how to wrap me up. I stayed conscious.
Oh, you were still conscious.
I was still conscious,
Wow.
and
Incredible.
they wrapped it up, and they couldn't evacuate me because the battle was still going on. So I had to lay on the ground for about 3 hours until light came. Then the battle was over. Helicopters came in. They evacuated me, and they found that the shrapnel had torn up my nerves and stopped 1/4 of an inch from my jugular vein.
Oh,
They took it out. Some of the metal is still in there.
Yeah.
But they took and they fixed me up, and I survived. And I thought maybe that now I would be able to go home to America after that wound.
but no.
No. They met because I was a medic. There weren't enough medics, so they let me go back to Cu Chi base camp, and I got a letter better. And then a few weeks later, I was in the jungle again.
Wow. So you were afraid, you were wounded. How long did you stay there, here in Vietnam 50 years ago?
I was here 13 months, and I landed when we got here the first time. It was during the first Tet Offensive. So when I came, it was crazy, right away. And then as I got near the time that I was supposed to go home to America, they informed me that if you go back to America and there's less than 4 months to go in your service, they let you out early. I wanted out early. I was against the war before I came, and I was very much against the war after I came. So I couldn't imagine going back to the United States and still being in the Army. So I told them I would stay in Vietnam longer so that my time when I was done would be less, so they would let me out.
Yeah.
The worst mistake I ever made in my life. It was then the second Tet Offensive. And I was right here again, and I was right in the middle of all of it. And Cu Chi was under attack every day. And I lived underground for the last 30 days. And then, so I wouldn't make that mistake again. I would never have traded that time. But I made it out after 13 months.
Yeah. I think that the audience needs to know what was your experience in Vietnam for the first time, so they could see that how much efforts that you made to come back here. I think that the fact that you were a medic, you helped a lot of people, help you to feel easier to come back. But still, it was a horrendous experience during the battle.
I think being a medic has helped my mind
Yes.
through the years accept and understand my role and not be. I saw horrendous things, and I had people die in my arms.
Yeah.
And I had to perform a lot of acts, but I was not. I was scarred by that, by the horror of the injuries. But the fact that I was able to help in some way made my mind feel better
For a good cause.
for a good cause, so that now I feel good about my time here. I'm not sorry or remorseful.
Yeah, so you were able to bring 2 war vets back to Vietnam this time, and could you say that it was a satisfaction of your trip professionally during this time?
More than I could have hoped for.
How so?
It really was. Well, when you go into a show like this, you're so consumed with logistics on the front end, especially, moving crews around and travel and all those things. So you really don't have a lot of time to, kind of think about,
Yeah.
what's going to transpire when you actually get to the site of the production. So it wasn't until we landed and, met the crew and started working that I had this feeling that we were on the path to something extraordinary. So I think to say, am I pleased is an understatement. I think I'm more than pleased. You know, I think that, you know, the relationship that I've rebuilt with John over the many years that we lost contact with each other, getting to know Joe and his family, and continuing to work with BTV3.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a great experience.
Yeah. Let's talk about Joe. He's not here, but were he a different person after the trip?
I do believe so. Joe is very different than John.
I could picture. I could
Joe is
imagine.
very what we call blue collar. You know, he grew up in a working environment in a very industrialized part of America. He's very outspoken. He's quite a character, But he tends to hold in his emotions, and that's one of the reasons that he wanted to come on this trip.
Yeah.
When he was engaged to be married before he went to Vietnam, when he came back from Vietnam, he lost the woman he
fiancée?
loved
Yeah.
because he was a changed person. And he didn't know how to communicate his feelings about Vietnam, what he had gone through. So, he came back, he married another woman. That didn't work out because of mostly the conflicts he had internally about
PTSD?
Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, I guess you would say it was a PTSD situation. And he re-met the woman that he left behind 23 years later. And they got married again.
Wow.
So his wife convinced him to come back. Said, Joe, this is a part of your life. This is something that separated us,
Yeah.
you know, and made us be apart for all those years. And it's something that, I won't say alienated him with his children, but his children really didn't know their father the way they really wanted to know their father. And that's why his family, you know, was very supportive of him coming back. But Joe handled it differently than John did. I think Joe still had, and you know, I'll say this, I really don't think he's resolved it 100%.
Yeah.
You know, I think he still harbors some mixed feelings about his experience, not against the people, not against the country, but he's not an emotional person like John is, and he doesn't communicate like John does. So we're going to go back, and we'll visit him, let the trip sink in a little bit, and let them, you know, talk about it a little bit. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks from now, we'll go back to Cleveland, and we'll ask him, does he feel like it's been resolved?
That's going to be on.
It'll be
the
on the
film?
show as well.
Yeah, right. Because there's always be the part that the character will reflect on the experience. But
Exactly,
It will take you more time for the war vet Joe. So, do you plan to bring more war vets to help them get back to Vietnam? Maybe not on the next film, but as in general of.
You never know. I hope by seeing this film in the United States that more veterans, if they feel they have the need to, do come and visit Vietnam as part of their healing process, or just part of their, you know, getting to know a new Vietnam, or bringing their family over with them and being able to show them some of the places that they've experienced. I don't believe that we'll do another film like we did with John and Joe. We don't need to.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we've come to this chapter in the story that we can feel proud of and say we did this. But I will say that we are looking at doing a 3rd episode. So we'll basically have a Vietnam trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll have Remembering Vietnam, which is a reflectance of the past. We'll have Return to Vietnam, where we bring Joe and John back. And we want to do a show about the aftermath.
Yeah.
Here we are 50 years later. What have we learned as Americans? We want to show some of the residual damage that happens from war, where war is not over when you sign the treaty. You know, in the case of America, we're still paying for the war.
Yeah.
We have so many veterans that aren't as fortunate as John or Joe that have massive psychological problems. They have physical problems from Agent Orange exposure. So we feel that that's an important part of the story too, saying, okay, you've looked at the Vietnam War historically. We've shown you some of the, you know, some of the healing that can be done, and how 2 individuals represent, you know, the different types of people that are
Yes.
sent and forced to go
was
to
a
war.
very perfect choice
Right.
for you to bring two different war vets back to Vietnam.
But we have talked about coming back personally with our wives to experience Vietnam again and to share the new Vietnam, our new Vietnam, with our spouses. So we're already talking about our next trip here.
That's very nice. So you are in the post-production phase of this
We are.
next film, right? In the immediate future, when we will see this product of yours?
Well, for our version, we're doing two versions. We're doing the version for our American audience, and then VTV3 is doing the version for your audience. Our version, I would like to get done before December 31st so that we could submit it for awards.
Yeah.
So we want to submit it for an Emmy Award. We have what's called the Peabody Award, which is an award for excellence in journalism. So we'll definitely air it before the year is done.
That would be nice. And we look forward to seeing your documentary film, both American version and the VTV version. And I think it's going to be a touching experience for the audience, especially the elders in our country, and also for the youngsters to know that this is the past, and it has come to closure, and we have a bright future ahead, especially in Vietnam, in America individually, and for both countries moving forward. And thank you so much for
Well, thank
coming
you for
by
having
to
us.
Cafe Sang, and I hope that you will come back with your family, with your spouse in no time.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thưa quý vị khán giả, chắc chắn rằng là chúng ta sẽ đâu máy nào máy Toàn nhá. Đây. Rồi. Thưa quý vị khán giả, chắc chắn là chúng ta sẽ còn phải chờ thêm một khoảng thời gian ngắn nữa để được theo dõi bộ phim tài liệu Trở về Việt Nam, Return to Vietnam của tác giả Bob Judson, cũng như là sự xuất hiện của những cựu chiến binh Mỹ và những cuộc gặp gỡ hết sức xúc động trong bộ phim tài liệu này. Nhưng trong khoảng thời gian chờ đợi đó thì chúng ta cũng đã hiểu thêm về trải nghiệm của những nhà làm phim trong chuyến trở lại Việt Nam lần này. Và chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục cập nhật tới quý vị trong những chương trình lần sau.